Welcome to Powering Through Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Teresa Sims. I'm a coach, an author, wife, mom, survivor, and thriver. Each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I will discuss a special topic that's close to their heart. Together, we will explore the challenges they have faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their life. So get ready to be inspired, motivated, and become a thriver. Hi, and welcome to another segment of Powering Through Life. Today, you're going to be so amazed with all the powerful information that my guest is going to provide for us. My guest today is Ethan Pompeo. Ethan, did I pronounce that correctly?
That's correct. Yes, it's Italian.
Well, perfect. Welcome to Powering Through Life. And Ethan's message today is one that I had never heard of before. So this is going to be a lot of information for me and a lot of information for our guests. So Ethan's life took a turn for the worst when he was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called PANDAS as a kid. And now his company is transforming the health and lives of others with simple, effective wellness solutions for the whole family. Ethan, I'm so glad you're here. Now, would you please tell the listeners what PANDAS is? Because it's a new term for me, and until we connected, I had never heard of it. So please explain it.
Certainly. So we've all heard of pandas as we know them at the zoo, but this is nothing like the cute, cuddly animal we're all familiar with. PANDAS is an acronym for Pediatric Autoimmune Neurological Disorders Associated with Strep. It's a mouthful, but the way I describe it is it's an unusual autoimmune response that your body has to an infection. Generally, it's strep throat, but it could be a parasitic infection or any kind of other pathogen, really, that enters your body. It's generally the onset is seen in the formative years, hence the pediatric, but it has been known to affect adults as well. When I was 13, as you mentioned, I started having severe neurological symptoms out of nowhere. I mean, I was healthy one morning, and then the next day, I had these motor tics and severe anxiety that I didn't know what to do with, OCD, all kinds of debilitating neurological symptoms that changed the entire course of my life. And at the time, we had no idea what was going on. Most people have never heard of pandas, and you can imagine this was 15 years ago. It was even less known. There was less awareness. And since then, I've worked very hard with a team of amazing people to promote awareness and advocacy for pandas. So it's come a long way. But still, very few people are aware of it. Even physicians and doctors are not aware of it. So it was a long road to actually get that diagnosis. I was misdiagnosed with Tourette syndrome as a kid.
Oh,
And so being labeled with Tourette syndrome was essentially a free pass for doctors to prescribe me with medication. So instead of treating the root cause of my symptoms, we were just trying to mask the symptoms with pharmaceuticals, which were essentially a band-aid. You know, many of these pharmaceuticals made me feel worse. The side effects outweighed the benefits much of the time. And for many years, I was completely at a loss of where to turn. So it actually wasn't until more recently that I found out what Pandas was. And when I put the pieces together, it started to make more sense and enabled me to start treating it in a more holistic way.
that's so profound. I mean, how did all of this affect your family life at this point in
Mm.
time when you first were experiencing the symptoms and then when you were diagnosed? I mean, it must have been total chaos.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. I mean, you can imagine seeing your child go from healthy to dealing with all these issues and the stereotypical image of someone with Tourette syndrome, swearing, cursing, stomping around, unable to control their anger or their anxiety. It was crippling for me. And from my parents' perspective, I mean, I can't imagine how painful that must have been to see their oldest child going through that. I had three younger siblings living in the house with me as well, and they had no idea what was going on. They saw their brother struggling with these things randomly out of nowhere. It was very disruptive to our household. Naturally, I was blessed with two parents who are just fantastic, and they did everything they could to help. I went from doctor to doctor, and unfortunately, nobody knew where to go. Nobody knew where to turn. And by the time I was 17 years old, I had been prescribed more than 40 different prescription medications, all of which really they didn't do the trick.
Yeah. And it must have taken a fair bit of time for each one of those medications to be cleared out of your system.
Sure.
If there was time to allow that to happen before the next one came along.
Right. I felt like a lab rat at times, I will tell you. Many of these meds, yeah, they had a ramp up period. I had to take them for 30, 60 days, to wean myself on and off of them, without causing more problems that would need more medication to address. The first medication I was ever prescribed was actually a blood pressure medicine that had off-label use or a side effect that had been shown to reduce certain tic disorders and certain motor function issues. And so that was the first medicine I was prescribed. And as a 13-year-old on blood pressure medication, it begs the question, what is up with this? Is this really medicine, or are we just kind of experimenting here? So it was challenging, and it opened my eyes to, how the medical field really works. I mean, if you break your arm, the doctor's invaluable. You go to the doctor, they put a splint, they know how to treat that, and out you go. You'll be better in a few weeks. But when you show up to their office with something that's lesser known or something they're not familiar with, it can present a real challenge.
Yeah. And I can completely understand the lab rat
Mm,
way that you must have felt. I mean, another appointment, another poking, prodding, another set of tests, another medication. It must have been just so overwhelming. And um, how did it affect yourself with your siblings?
mm. Well, we have a term for this. It's called physician fatigue. When you're drug around to all these appointments day after day, it is exhausting. It's exhausting for the parents. It's exhausting for the child. And I can imagine that my siblings felt kind of left in the dust at certain times. I started getting all this attention, not in a good way, but we were trying to get to the root of this issue and get me some help. And
Yeah.
so bless my siblings, I really do remember a time where I mean, they were never neglected, but I can imagine seeing me getting this special treatment, driving up to Johns Hopkins or wherever to get these appointments. It took all day sometimes just for one doctor visit. And so my siblings, they didn't get that same attention. And they didn't even, for a long time, they didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah, I can imagine. But if you've got loving, kind, compassionate, understanding parents,
Mm.
that must have helped enormously with the family unit itself, I would imagine.
You know, it was a challenge, and we can talk about some of the reasons why. But it was not good in the beginning at all. It really that dynamic you described was not the way it went at first.
Okay.
But as I moved through my healing journey, it indeed brought us together and brought us more close together. One of the biggest reasons why I say that is because I was very ashamed and unwilling to talk about what I was dealing with for a long time. And part of that goes with the obsessive compulsive disorder, but I didn't want anybody to know what I was dealing with. I wanted to pretend like everything was fine, like nothing bad was happening, like I would be better next week. But that's just not the reality I faced. And for many years, I bottled up all these emotions and all these feelings and tried to just grit it out myself. And all it did was exacerbate my anxiety. It just made things worse, and it was not a good place. It was a very isolating, lonely, depressing place to be in. And so one of the keys to my wellness journey that I'd want to share with you today is just learning how to be okay with yourself. Owning your situation, regardless of what obstacles you face, was a huge turning point in my life. Going from a place where I was afraid and ashamed to talk about what I was dealing with to a place where I'm comfortable coming on your show today and talking to you about my entire journey is remarkably healing in and of itself. Just being able to let go of that anxiety and those expectations we have of ourselves is very freeing. And I would encourage people, if you're in this situation, whether you have PANDAS or some kind of other disease or disorder or setback, being able to be okay with yourself as you are is something that we should all be more familiar with.
Absolutely. And how did you go from where you were? What changes happened within you, and how did you learn to take this or adopt this philosophy and this lifestyle change that you've obviously been successful in adopting? Like, what was the
Thank
turning
you.
point for you?
Well, it didn't happen overnight. I can tell
True.
you that. There were many events in my life that pointed me to this idea that I needed to be open about my situation. One of them actually was with regards to starting my business, getting my message out there. I was trying to offer a supplement that I knew was helping me, but I wasn't able to reach the people who needed to hear my message because I wasn't sharing my message. Uh, Everything changed when I decided to own this pandas thing. And if you go to my website now, you'll see my logo is a panda. So, so
Perfect.
I went from this mindset of again being ashamed of who I am and what I'm dealing with to saying, you know, maybe I'm okay with this whole pandas thing. And if I share this with others and share what I'm dealing with, it's an opportunity to relate to them and offer that help to the people who need to hear it most.
Yeah, absolutely. I think acceptance of what we're dealt is really important in our healing journey and our growth. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I don't think I was given this challenge by mistake or by fluke. You know, looking back on my life's journey, everything happened to me for a purpose to put me in the position that I am in now. And it wasn't easy. It certainly was very difficult and overwhelming at times. I was not ready for what I was faced with at 13 years old. But, you know, fast forward 15 years, I'm in a very good place now. I'm incredibly blessed to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look very comfortable and very confident in who you are and what you're presenting. And I truly do appreciate that. And I know the listeners will as well. How did that affect your, and this might sound like an odd question, but uh, puberty, growing up, being a young man, going to high school, all that sort of thing. Like that must have been an extreme challenge at that point in time for you.
It was, I will say, going into high school, you know, everybody just wants to be accepted.
True.
Everybody wants to be normal, so to speak. Right. So when you're the guy sitting in class and you have these tics and these twitches and you have to pick your pencil up and put it down and pick it up and put it down over and over and over again, and you're tapping on your desk and hitting yourself in the head at times, it can be humiliating, right? My classmates looked at me, stared at me, asked, "Are you okay?" I can't tell you how many times I heard that. "Are you okay? Are you okay?" It drove me nuts. And all I wanted to do was just be normal. So I really, around that time, you know, we're becoming independent, we're becoming adults, we're becoming our own people. I started seeking out solutions for myself. My parents had done everything they could to get me to that point, but nothing was really working. I found a few things that would help relieve my anxiety temporarily, but then I'd get home and all hell would break loose, you know. The anger outbursts would resume. I'd break holes in the walls. It was just a very unpleasant situation. So I started grasping at straws to find something that would give me some relief. And to be honest with you, the whole pharmaceutical journey that I faced as a young person really opened the doors. I consider the pharmaceutical drugs a gateway drug to other recreational use of other substances. And that use of pharmaceuticals and pills was very normalized to me throughout those years of my childhood, trying this and that and this and that and changing the dose and seeing a different perspective and all this. So by the time I got to high school, especially where I grew up, marijuana was prolific. It was everywhere. And so I ended up trying it, and instantly I felt relief. And I'm not advocating use of marijuana for anyone, and especially children, but I will say it was the one thing I found that gave me relief from my anxiety and my tics. And so that's what I held on to for a long time. It's just that use of cannabis and marijuana. For years, I smoked um, anything to get some relief. So um, that was not a good place to be on. There's side effects associated with that, even though it's plant medicine, even though it's natural. Uh, I dealt with many side effects, including asthma and at times increased anxiety from being high and wondering, am I going to get caught? Am I going to get busted? Which inevitably I did, get arrested, which you can imagine how the toll that took on my anxiety. Uh,
Yes.
so, while I did find this substance that helped me, there were all these other cascading effects that impacted my life negatively as well. But nevertheless, as a teenager going through these changes, I convinced myself that this is what I needed to do. This is what was working for me. And I was hard-headed. I didn't want to listen to anybody. I wanted to do this because I thought it was working for me.
And what were the medical profession saying to you at that point in time?
Well, so growing up in a very traditional conservative family, my parents did not feel comfortable talking about this either. And that even increased the whole mentality that I had about bottling things up and keeping it to myself. Using marijuana now compounded all that because it's this illicit substance that I'm using. My parents did not want me to do it, but what can you do to stop your kid at that point?
Right.
Most of the time, the doctor, you'd fill out the form. Do you drink alcohol? Do you smoke this and that? I would say, no, I don't smoke, and just pretend like it wasn't happening. And that's not helping myself looking back. The doctor's trying to get a holistic perspective of what you're doing in your life, what you're dealing with, your medical history. All of these things are important in putting together the picture of what your life looks like and how to move forward. And when you're hiding these things, these important details, it only hurts you. It doesn't help you. Um, so there was one physician um, who actually was familiar with pandas. She introduced me to cognitive behavioral therapy and some other holistic lifestyle changes that really made an impact on my life. And I started to trust her because I felt like she was the only person who actually understood what I was dealing with. I was about 17 at this time, so around that point where I'd had enough with the pharmaceutical meds. And so visiting her and talking about these alternative holistic therapies was a breath of fresh air. And she really pointed me towards this idea. And I opened up to her about it and said, "Look, I'm using marijuana. I'm smoking on a daily basis to deal with my symptoms." And to my surprise, she said, "Oh, well, if that's working for you, then good." And wrote in her notepad and kept going. And this is at 17 years old, so doctor-patient confidentiality was a thing. But I was just alarmed at how non-judgmental she was, and it really relaxed me and made me feel comfortable sharing, which was very important because again, I needed to share. I needed to be open in order to get a proper diagnosis and a prognosis on how to move forward.
Absolutely. And I would imagine for yourself at 17 years old, for the first time being heard must have been really important for you.
It certainly was.
Yeah, because it's you go to these appointments, you go to doctors, and we all do, and you tell them what's going on, but you don't always know you're actually being heard. Yes, they hear you, but are you really hearing what I'm saying? And personally, I know cognitive behavioral therapy is fantastic. It's
Mm.
an amazing tool. And I've used it for anxiety and stress and mindfulness and all that sort of thing. It's powerful. And I think we all need a little bit of that in our lives at some point in time, don't you think?
I agree. It's not just for PANDAS or Tourette's or these autoimmune disorders. You can use cognitive behavioral therapy to retrain your brain on any capacity, whether it's anxiety, stress management, even dealing with chronic pain, physical ailments. Your brain is incredibly powerful and largely misunderstood, I think, today. Learning how to retrain my brain, rewire my neural pathways so that I could get a hold of what I was doing was the top number one thing I ever did for my health. Now, I will say it is not easy, especially when you're getting started. It can be extremely challenging to deny yourself the urge to tick and to express your anxiety and your feelings in that way, because that's the way your brain is responding. With pandas, it's an autoimmune disorder, as I mentioned, but the way it works is that the strep bacteria or whatever pathogen you're facing causes an unusual antibody response in your body. And for me, my strep antibodies started to be produced in such excess that they crossed my blood-brain barrier and caused inflammation in a part of my body that they should not have, which was your basal ganglia. It's your motor cortex. And
Mm.
so when there's inflammation in your brain, in the motor cortex of your brain, you can start having loss of motor function and unusual responses. And that's why when I started to put the pieces together of what PANDAS was and what it looks like, it started to really make sense. And when I look at my use of cannabis for relaxation and relieving my symptoms, cannabis has very powerful anti-inflammatory properties, largely related to CBD, not THC. So if THC is the compound that gets people high, right? That wasn't doing anything to help me. It made me feel good in high school, but what was actually helping me was the CBD that is present in cannabis. That's a non-psychoactive anti-inflammatory compound. I call it nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory. And so
Oh, yeah.
without knowing it, using cannabis was actually giving me that CBD dose that was relieving the inflammation in my brain and helping me to feel better. So that was kind of the leg up that I needed in order to be more successful with my cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's the link I'm trying to illustrate to you right now is that with cognitive behavioral therapy, it is so healing. It is the best thing you can do if you're faced with a struggle like PANDAS, but it's very difficult. The first thing I ever did with cognitive behavioral therapy was retraining myself to walk up the staircase. It sounds funny, but I had to sprint up the stairs every time. I was convinced that there was some evil creature lurking behind me whenever I went up the stairs, and I had to watch behind my shoulder and sprint up the stairs as fast as I could to be safe. And it's this illogical, irrational fear that my brain was this mental picture that it was painting for me that I had to get over. And so I used cognitive behavioral therapy as a tool to teach myself that this was not real. I would start at the bottom of the steps and walk up slowly. As as easy as it sounds to someone who isn't dealing with this, it's almost impossible for someone with PANDAS.
Yeah.
And so trying that was very difficult. But CBD actually gave me a little bit of relief. I like to say it takes the edge off so I can take a deep breath, relax, refocus, and focus on the task at hand. And sometimes we just need a little bit of relief, a little bit of a push in order to get through these tasks we're working on. And that was the case for me with cognitive behavioral therapy. So I use CBD as a tool to give me some relief so that I could focus on CBT. And there's studies out there that actually are confirming this link that I discovered by myself as a teenager in my basement. That
Wow.
CBD can be used as a tool to help benefit your cognitive behavioral training.
Absolutely. And, I happen to know today that, they can isolate and give you medication or the product with just CBD without the THC, or you can get the THC without the CBD or higher quantities of each one. And working with a practitioner or doctor to get the right amount of dosage is really key as well.
Mm,
But I understand the cognitive behavioral therapy part, and with the brain being so neuroplastic. I mean, it's so easy. We don't realize how neuroplastic the brain is. It can be retrained. It can open up.
mm.
When we do the work, we can open up areas that haven't been open for a long time, or retrain the brain to do a certain task. For example, like you walking up and down the stairs, the cognitive behavioral therapy, one thing at a time, take one action step at a time, celebrate the successes that you've had in doing that one step, move on to the next one and keep going. It's a growth, isn't it? It's
Exactly.
a growth process, and it's so helpful for a lot of people.
Well,
And
that's exactly what I did. I started with the stairs, and once I felt like I had mastered that, I moved on to the next tick, which was turning the light switch on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And I told myself, I'm going to walk into the room, turn the light switch on, and let go. And I did. And after weeks and months of practicing that intentionally, I found that I didn't even have to think about it anymore. I could walk in, turn the light switch off. Hey, I just did that. And it starts to normalize these everyday routines that I had gotten myself in the habit of doing in a very odd way because of the disability, because of the brain inflammation. But it just goes to show we are capable of mastering these things. You don't have to succumb to your illness, right?
Absolutely.
So,
You are not your illness.
right.
You are Ethan. You are not PANDAS. Yes, you have PANDAS, but that doesn't define who you are,
I
right?
love that.
Yeah.
I think that's so true. It's beautiful. And what you mentioned with CBD, that's exactly what we do now. I just wanted to clarify, I don't use marijuana anymore. We have a brand of CBD products that is completely THC free. So you get those inflammatory medicinal benefits of the plant medicine without the high, without the side effects or the unwanted health consequences of smoking or any of these things. It's something you can take safely under your tongue. And it's safe for everybody, including our kids. I say the whole family can take this. If I had access to this when I was 13 years old, it would have made my journey tremendously easier. Uh, but unfortunately, I didn't discover that until I was almost an adult. So, but here we are.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, isn't it? But you know what? You figured it out, and you've gone on a journey that is exceptional. And I applaud you for the success that you've had.
Thank you.
I mean, you're a healthy, happy individual. You're a family man. You're a business owner. You have a pilot's license. Is that what I'm seeing as
I
well?
do. That's something that was always on my bucket list. I always wanted to fly, and I was just so fascinated with the skies and the Wright brothers, reading about them as a kid. And but when I was struck with these ticks, I thought it would never happen. It was
Yeah.
one of those things that I told myself, you'll never be able to do that. And so being able to master the skies and achieve my pilot's license in the face of adversity was tremendous. It just showed me point blank that I could do whatever I set my mind to. And it's not just me. I'm not saying that I'm special in any way. I'm not super educated. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a normal guy who decided to take steps towards beating this instead of succumbing to it. I made a mental decision to work at this and take those steps towards healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what the whole point about it. I mean, we're faced with these challenges in life, and we can't just be a spectator in what's going on.
Mm,
We have to be the advocate for ourselves with our health and how we're treated within the health industry. And I've learned that myself. Like, if the doctor says something to me and I don't agree or I have questions about it, I'm going to challenge them on it. I'm going to ask more
mm,
questions. I'm going to do my own research, because I'm not just going to take something at face value, and we
right.
shouldn't. It's our bodies.
I spent many years just looking to the doctors for this miracle pill that frankly doesn't exist, regardless of what we're facing. But that's what we do. That's what our culture has accustomed us to do. You're sick, you go to the doctor. You have this issue, you see the doctor. And we look to them almost as idols. Like we expect them to just give us this prescription that will cure all our ailments and will be, send us on our way. But even if that was the case, do you really want to be on this prescription for the rest of your life? Or do you want to find a way to overcome these obstacles and live a life that has far more meaning, that's cleaner and more holistic, and you'll probably live longer too because of it.
Absolutely. And you know what, Ethan, you have proven, and I'm going to use your pilot's license, you have proven that the sky is not the limit. You can go beyond. And you've done that. I mean, with the successes you've had, I mean, when you first mentioned, or I first saw that you had your pilot's license, I thought, how on earth, what earth, how would someone with the ticks that you have be able to have a pilot? What happens if you're up flying and something occurs? But you know what? You are in control of everything that is going on with you, and you have done the healing journey and the work and found a way to transform your life. And
Well,
it's a
the interesting, I find it interesting that when I am in control of the airplane, I have virtually zero ticks whatsoever. It's the same case if I'm riding a motorcycle. Like my mom loves that I fly and ride motorcycles, right? But it's like you find these activities and these skills in life that requires 100% focus,
yes.
and it is like it is healing. It is like my tics are non-existent. When I play drums, I'm back there getting my anxiety out by beating the drums, but at the same time, I have no tics because it requires full focus. It's something I enjoy. It nurtures my soul. It's something I'm passionate about. We have to have these hobbies and these outlets in life, or else you're just living for the next doctor's appointment, right? Slothing around the house. you have to get up and get active and find things that you can enjoy that make you feel whole, that make you feel human, because they are in and of themselves healing. And so I
Absolutely.
just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I agree with you. When you're doing those activities, your mind is 100% focused on that. You don't have time to think about the other thing. And what you're actually doing is retraining your brain to
Mm.
focus on the positive and on the good. And it's desensitizing maybe the other aspects that you're or the symptoms that you're experiencing. Would you agree with that?
I would. Yes, that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, because I know for myself, living with chronic pain and the spine damage that I have,
Hmm.
if you focus on it 100%, well, that's what you're going to get, and it's going to magnify itself. But if you focus on the good parts of life and you focus on what you can do, or finding something that really jazzes you up, the other stuff, it just takes a back seat.
It's
And
so
it's
true. And for someone dealing with chronic pain, that's really that's amazing that you say that because it is debilitating. It impacts every aspect of your life when you're dealing with pain. But as a father, I have a little bit of a different perspective now because I see my kid fall down, scrape her knee, she gets a boo-boo. It's horrifying, you know. Oh, life is over as we know it. We need a Band-Aid, we need this and that. But the instant you can distract your child from the blood or the boo boo or whatever it is, give her a cup of ice cream. There's no pain, right? It goes
yeah,
away. It's like the boo boo never occurred. And that shows the power of the brain. Our perception of what's happening to our bodies can magnify the impact and the severity of the pain we're experiencing. And so I totally agree with that. The brain is so powerful. Use it as a tool for your benefit.
yeah, absolutely. And if something is going on, take a look at it, take an honest look at it. If you have to journal about it, do that, because getting the physical act of getting the whatever is going on in your mind, and the physical act of writing it down on a piece of paper is actually therapeutic to get it out of your body, out of your mind. There's so many tools that we can
Mm.
use, and they're all powerful, and we just need to explore. And I'm so honored that you shared this with us, because this is fantastic. Ethan, do you have a favorite quote that you'd like to share? Because I know you sent me one. Would you like me to read it for you? Do you remember it?
I do, but yeah, you're welcome to. I certainly do, and I'll tell you, this gentleman has several quotes that I absolutely love. If you don't know Nick Vujicic, look him up. He is an absolute champion. But please,
Okay, Nick says, when you don't get a miracle, you can still be one. And that is absolutely true. I've watched that guy on videos before. He is outstanding. Like, he has taken his challenges and his um, life and turned it into something powerful.
mm,
He's so inspiring.
it is. And from the outside in, you're looking at his life. You say, well, you did get a miracle, Nick, right? And for those who don't know him, he was born with a rare disease. He has no arms or legs, and
Mhm.
that's his reality. And he's always prayed for this miracle that maybe, the Lord would bless him with arms and legs one day. But it never happened. And so that's why he said that, if you don't get that miracle, you can still be one to others. And quite honestly, his books have been instrumental in my life, like just giving me hope and giving me a perspective that things could be a lot worse,
Yeah.
right? And seeing how he's overcome being born without arms or legs, yet he has a beautiful wife, a family. He travels the world. He's an international speaker. He's met with royalty and celebrity. I mean, the man is unstoppable, and that's actually the name of his book. And
Ah,
it's anyway, I have to put a plug in for Nick because I actually had a chance to meet him last year. He came to Maryland and had he spoke at a church just about 2 hours north of me, and I said I have to go. So I drove up there and saw him speak, and it was just amazing. Like I have so much respect for him, and I appreciate everything he's done. For just being outspoken about what he's dealing with and being honest about his situation, and to see where he's come, where the point of where he is now. I mean, he's still dealing with the impact of his disability. He still has no arms or legs, right? But he's come up with all these tools to help him, and his mental perspective is so incredible. He's not a depressed human being. Like he has an amazing life despite what he faces, and I always wanted that for my life.
And I've watched him a few years ago on videos, and he is actually quite funny as well. Like he
He's a
just,
comedian.
yeah, absolutely. With it, I seem to remember the flipper thing, but
He does have a flipper. Yeah,
yeah.
my favorite joke he'd actually said when I saw him, he said he's walking around or on his scooter or in his wheelchair and kids will say, "Mom, Mommy, look at that guy." Like, and they say, "What happened to you?" This little boy walked up to him and said, "What happened?" And Nick said, "Cigarettes." And I just think he's so funny. He's always just encouraging and making people laugh. Such a
Yeah.
positive individual.
Well, and I think that hits the nail right on the head. We have choices in this life, and you have the choice to either accept and wallow, or you have the choice to excel and be just an inspiration and just be yourself and enjoy life, because this is the life we're given,
Mm,
and we have the choice of whether we're going to live it fully or just, you know, be.
that's
And
right.
yeah, yeah. So, Ethan, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, I like to say I'm easy to find. You can find me on social media, right? And I took a long hiatus from social media as part of my healing journey, but when you start a business, it's kind of an essential function of that, and it is a great outreach tool. So I like to use it for good and not get caught up in the nitty-gritty and comparing myself to others and all that stuff. But anyway, you can find me on Instagram. It's Ethan Pandas. I'm on Facebook as well. You can go to our website, greenvalleynutrition.com. There's a contact page on there. You can email us, you can call us. There's a chat feature. We're here to help. So you're not going to be transferred to some AI bot or someone in a foreign country. We're here to help our team. This is what we do. This is what we're passionate about. This is what we live and breathe, excuse me, every day. So please feel free to reach out. Any of those paths will get you connected with us.
Absolutely. And when we post the segment, I will share all of your links, because honestly, listeners, you really need to get in touch with Ethan. If you have any questions about pandas or his healing journey or how he's experienced any situation that's gone on in his life, get in touch with him. I know, Ethan, you'll be happy to share and answer questions. And, thank you so much for sharing pandas with us
Mm,
and for sharing your journey. I really do truly appreciate the time you've taken to give voice to this, because I
it's my
know
pleasure.
there's, yeah, I know there's someone out there that's experiencing possible symptoms like this or
Mhm.
unsure, and it's just inspiration to hear how you've gone from, being so closed off to being the beautiful person that you are right now.
Well, thank you. I will also say if you are facing with this specific issue, we have a Facebook group called PANDAS Virginia. You don't have to live in Virginia to join the group, so please look us up. If you join that group, it's a wealth of information. I mean, if you have a question, post it on there. You'll get 30 people who have walked that journey, answering you, giving you expertise, guidance, even giving you physicians that are knowledgeable about this that can help. I also have a few blog posts on my website about specifically the things I've done. We talked about a few of them, but there's many other important steps I took in my healing journey that made a big impact on my life. And I did publish a blog post about that and the things I did that helped me to heal. So I'll share that with you, and it's a quick read, and I think it'll definitely help you get a better perspective of how to move forward with this.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ethan. And you send me that link as well, and I will definitely
Sure.
share that, because I think, the more information we can get out there, and it doesn't matter what you're dealing with, but the more information that we can share and be open about, the better our lives will be and the more fulfilled our lives will be. And
Mm.
I truly want to thank you for being an incredible guest today.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Listeners, get in touch with Ethan. Don't be shy. Ask questions, because he is very open and honest, and he will give you the inspiration and the answer that you're looking for. And if he can't, I'm sure he will send you in a direction that you can find the answers yourself. It's all about doing what's best for yourself, researching for yourself, getting advice, and exploring, because you just don't know. And we need to share this information so that we can inspire and motivate the world. And we've done that today through
That's right.
conversation. So thank you, Ian. or Ethan, excuse me, wrong name. Thank you, Ethan, for being such a fabulous guest.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Listeners, get in touch with Ethan today. You won't regret it. And we'll talk to you again next time. Thank you for listening to Powering Through Life, where we explore life's challenges and learn valuable insights from my guests about how they have powered through their lives to survive and thrive. We can learn incredible lessons by sharing and motivating the world through conversation. You can access all of the Powering Through Life episodes on my website, teresasims.com, YouTube, Facebook, and Spreaker. So join us again next time for another inspiring conversation.